Well, welcome to Hannover Messe 2019. This is our first panel, and I'm really extremely happy to be here. So my name is Eric Schaefer. I am from Accenture, and I lead our industrial practice, but also what we call Industry X.0, which is all about the product's agenda for manufacturers, from innovation, engineering, manufacturing, and after sales. And I hope you haven't sat on the book, but there was a book on your chair, and I'm one of the co-authors of this book. Okay, so if you're sitting on it, just take it out. I'll be joined in a few minutes with three panelists. I'll start with Steve Dersen, who's the CTO of PTC. Then I'll be joined by Professor Lutke, or Christoph, I'll try to make it simple, who's from the Munich Technical University. I know I say it in the wrong order, but I'll do it the French way. This is how we do it. And he's the director of the newly founded Institute for Ethics in Artificial Intelligence. And last but not least, René Deist from Faurecia, who's got two roles, CIO, but he's also leading the digital transformation of the company. And if you've been on our booth, you can see that Faurecia is all over the place and in the digital technologies. The theme of this panel is reinventing the product. And by reinventing the product, what you'll see is that digital is reinventing the industry. I'm sure you're fully aware of this. But also digital is completely redefining the products and services of our clients. Traditional products are becoming smart, connected, intelligent, experience-rich. And this is what is fundamentally transforming the products, intelligence and experience. Imagine the implications for a company. I mean, for a company innovating, designing, engineering, manufacturing a smart connected product, very different from the way you engineer and manufacture traditional products. But also imagine all the new value spaces, product as a service, and what are the different business models. So a massive transformation for manufacturers. With my partner in crime, working on the book, Dave Sobey, who leads electronic and high tech, we've defined a framework, which we call the product reinvention grid, which is the combination of intelligence, IQ, and experience on the y-axis, EQ. And by combining the two, you get a product reinvention quotient. And the higher the quotient, the bigger the magnitude of change. Change in terms of the product architecture, change in terms of the technical traits of the product, but also change in terms of the way you design, engineer, and manufacture these products. And of course, these products give manufacturers the opportunity to tackle new value spaces, because we're seeing the value of the product shift from mechanical to electronics, to software, to digital technologies. These are just a few of the themes that with my three colleagues we'll tackle during the next 30 to 45 minutes, and you're more than welcome to ask any question at any point in time. So I'll ask the three panelists to join me, and if you're interested in the book, you have it. If you want to order it for some of your colleagues, Amazon is out of stock, but we've got a few copies, which I'll take a pleasure signing if you do want my autograph after this panel. Last thing, before we get into the topic, I'd just like to say hi, as we're having, to my colleagues in Italy, in UK, in Ireland, and in France, because we're having live events at the same time in all these different countries. Okay, I'm taking my French accent if you hadn't realized. So let's get started. The first topic is, so digital's completely transforming the industry, transforming products. More, as we've seen, intelligence, more experience in the product. So the first question which comes to mind is, so what are the key characteristics of these products of tomorrow? How are they different from the products of today? I'll change what we agreed, and I'm sure that will give a bit of fun. So I'll start with you, and then we'll go this way, and then we'll get back into what we had agreed, we say. So Steve, key characteristics of products. What are you seeing at your clients?
I think a couple things become clear, particularly in larger assets that our customers have that are demanding high value, is they're putting more connectivity in there for the product to have a voice, if you will, to give feedback, hence IoT. But what's more interesting is high degrees of variability. They want those products to be evergreen, meaning the very definition of what the product is isn't baked into it at the moment that it's sold. It's evolving slowly over time, and I could give you many examples, whether it's a Tesla, which is kind of the pinnacle version of delivering value over time in the car. We don't hear about them catching on fire anymore because of software changes. Let's hope that Boeing can do similar. But we look at assets all over, and in fact, we have a customer here that for 100 years, the product that they make has remained relatively unchanged. It's an industrial pump, but through connectivity, analytics, and adding other differentiated features on that product, making it part of a platform ecosystem, if you will, inside their customers, they're now able to highly differentiate what they're doing in the market, which is giving them a competitive edge.
Okay, thank you. I thought that was extremely courageous to talk about Tesla and the homeland of BMW, Mercedes, and Volkswagen, and Porsche. But okay, that was manly. Christoph, what about you? What do you see in your field happening with these products?
Thank you. So I'm looking at it from the point of ethics in particular, and I think what we will be witnessing, and to some extent already are, is that ethics, in a broad sense, I'm saying, ethics will be part of the product. So certain ethical rules will have to be implemented into those products for various reasons. I mean, many of these technologies will transform everyday life to a new extent, to an extent we have not seen so far. And these technologies will have to meet the acceptance from the customers. And what I believe is important there to take into account certain aspects that are ethical, or there are sustainability aspects in a broad sense. Otherwise, there will be a lot of skepticism, which we already see. Polls show that there's a lot of skepticism, I think maybe more than is reasonable. But in order to meet this skepticism, I think it's important to take into account the ethics right from the start. And what I would like to say is that ethics is not just something that should be seen as restraining or putting the brakes on the product, but also something that can be used in order to accelerate, actually, and in order to accelerate the implementation and the introduction into the market. I hope that ethics can be of use in this sense.
Interestingly, ethics, you need to have your microphone closer to the, so in terms of ethics, I think I was with one of my colleagues, Kono-san, who's in the audience, in Tokyo, and we had a representative from the World Economic Forum, and he was talking about the ethics API, because ethics is relative to different cultures, countries, and he says, so if you take a vehicle, autonomous, when you cross the border, how do you download the APIs from France to the APIs of Germany, for example? Because they might be slightly different, so there's a working group around that. Is that something you're working on?
That is actually, I was part of the first ethics committee for autonomous cars here in Germany some years ago, and there it is important to get to, at least in the EU, for example, to get to a harmonization of these rules. Otherwise, you will probably very complicated in order to change your settings once you cross the border, as you said. I have, by the way, just given a talk about this at the University of Tokyo, which was very well received there, and I think this is important to accelerate the international cooperation on these issues.
Oh, the good thing about EU is we'll be less and less people in the EU soon. So, René, what about Faurecia? We were talking about vehicles, cars, and you're in that business.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the products, they will be connected. It's an easy one, but the connectivity of products opens a complete new world. For us, it means new business models. All of a sudden, the biggest enabler of digital is HMI. So we add not only connectivity, now we add the possibility that we know how people use our products. That, of course, helps us to understand how to produce smarter, but also helps us to understand in a certain usage of our products, we open new value spaces. All of a sudden, we can create services that didn't exist. So we can talk about the experience of the usage and increase the experience. In our case, for Faurecia, we create basically the fine interior of cars. So whenever you own a car, And whenever you love the interior of your car, you're most likely our customers. And we add now the experience you have by putting sensors, understanding the data, and adding value to it. And this value then all of a sudden creates more benefit for you sitting and using the cockpit of the future.
So you mentioned a couple of keywords, HMI, experience, intelligence, and that will lead me my second question. But so a couple of weeks ago, I was at Industry of Things World in San Diego, and we're showing Amazon Echo on the slide. And I asked to the audience, what is this product? Everybody said Alexa. Nobody called it Amazon Echo because it is the experience, the user interface that now redefines what the product is. But everybody forgot that Echo is a pretty nice piece of engineering. I mean, it's pretty sophisticated. And that is what allows the UI to happen. So experience beats features. So which leads me to my second question, which was all about the value. And I think Echo was a good, or Amazon Echo is a good example. We're seeing the value of the product shift from the piece of hardware, the box, we saw it to electronics. We saw this shifting to software and now to digital. It is digital, digitally enabled services. It is the user experience which defines the value of the product. So are you seeing this with your customers or even with your own products? Because as a software editor, I'm sure you're in that transformation.
Yeah, both. So in the customer example that I gave that makes the pump, we put an augmented reality interface on top of that to differentiate how that works. But just like Alexa or Echo, it only works if you can integrate it with many other things. That's actually changing the experience because for the operators of this equipment, they go from screen to screen, application to application, and with the dynamics in a changing workforce, that doesn't work anymore. So they're putting a compelling user experience in front of this product. And just to give you an idea, if the product fails, it's about $1 to $5 million an hour of lost benefit. So it's actually pretty profound for them to put a self-guided experience in front of this thing because it might take a couple days for a service technician to show up. And so that is a tremendous value differentiator. And even in our own software, we optionally collect feedback from customers, and we understand the features that they use. We understand what frustration looks like. You can actually look inside and kind of preemptively get out ahead of it. And if you think about that from a business case scenario, you could actually reach out to that customer before they call you angry or distraught about a scenario. And in many cases, it's just they're doing something different. And a little bit of coaching could radically change that behavior. But that early insight into what's going on, think about an autonomous car, for an example. I want a car that can actually self-heal and update and so forth because I'm a proud owner of an AMG. But unless it can actually update to deal with the different dynamics in autonomous vehicle driving, I don't exactly want to buy a new one to get the safety feature. That's something that's going to have to come with it.
Good. René, what about from a Forestia? Because you're a product maker at the end.
Yeah. We have. I mean, from a strategy point of view, to talk about the value is we are a manufacturing company, so we manufacture really high quality goods. Everything you can our interior you can touch, feel, sense, use, and experience every day. But now we've added electronics to the game and create more value out of it. All of a sudden, we talk about the infotainment system and the way you interact with the cockpit. And the next logical step is then we go to software, and after software, we go to digital. So we are absolutely in high speed on this transformation. And the reason is we see new values that is adding to our products. So the products will still be there. We still manufacture these products, but we add now a new value of new digital services we are going to sell on top of the products. And this, with high speed, is just helping to transform our company. And I personally always predict that in some years from now, a lot of people will work more IT related. I always say in IT, but not for IT, don't get me wrong. But create services, and that means that the production process to create and to foster all this value will need to have a PLM and an ALM at the same time. So you have to immediately start to think about what are the features of this product and what are the digital features you will add to it, and from there you start the production.
So you're already touching on my third topic, which was all about the implications. We're getting it wrong. The implications for the company, and the new tools, new approaches. So fully agree. Christoph, can I end with you on this one? Ethics, business ethics, value. Is there a link that you can make between the two?
Well, there's an old joke that that says, well, someone asks you, can I study business ethics? And well, you have to decide which one. That's about the oldest joke that exists about that topic. So, so I believe definitely there is a link, and that actually you cannot you cannot do sustainable business, not just in the long run, but in the medium and often also in the short run, without being ethical. And so you need to follow certain rules. You have to change your organization. You have to do a lot of things now. And this is not just personal ethics anymore. Some believe ethics is just about my personal values. No, it's today. It's as many companies have learned. It's much more. It's organizational programs you have to do, compliance things you have to do, and I know that much of this is often been seen as complicated and why do we need this? But I believe this is something that actually is good for business eventually, and gets business to be cleaner, but also more productive and more effective. So I believe there are a lot of cases where we can show that, and in the digital world, I think it will be the same.
Oh, because I do see a link between ethics, trust, security, and at the end, I mean, as we're all in the business world, trust is important. It's one of the key assets that we have around our products, our brand. So I can see the link. So we talked about transformation of the industry, transformation of the product. Okay, so maybe one thing, as we were talking about the shift in value, is what will happen to industrial manufacturers? And I was just reflecting on a piece of research that we conducted a few months ago, where we surveyed over 1,300 companies across the world, different industries. And what it showed, the respondents said they saw digital as completely transforming their products and services. I think it was 96% in the US, 91% in China, 75, 80% in Japan. So across the world, a strong belief that digital is transforming the products. Another point, data point, which I found interesting, is that when you look at what happened at the PC industry and where the value went, it went to these guys, the software guys that became now your platformed. So it went to the software guys. It also went to the component providers. But the boxes, little value left. When you also look at then the overall profit generated by, let's say, the high-tech industry, in the early 2000s, 60% of the value was generated by the Dells, the PC providers, the manufacturers. 2012, 46%. Last year, 26%. Where did the value go? The platforms, the internet platform providers, and the semiconductors, so to the component providers. So imagine what this means for Faurecia, for example. The squeeze they could be in. So, just to put a bit of pressure on you, René, and make you feel, all sweaty. This is going to happen.
No, not at all. Just to compare, I'm totally with you. The value is transforming into, especially in this, say, IT or PC sector, into the software. I mean, what's important is that you create a product that has a meaning to the customer, something you really want to touch, feel. There's, I could now talk about smartphones, which are still very meaningful. So you have them in your hand and you use them every day. It's not only it's useful, but also you touch and feel it. So for us, interior is something that people really want. In whatever way of mobility we're talking about in the future, you want to sit comfortable, and you want to feel comfortable, and you want to somehow react and interact with your cockpit. So I would not say this value will transform completely, but of course there is new value, and it's very important for a company like ours to be able to capture these new value spaces in addition. to
Okay.
the value that's there.
So is that why you were at CES? Because I mean, I don't know how many
Yeah,
of you
exactly.
attended CES this year. I mean, it was a great show. It's always a great show. I mean, it's like le Cirque du Soleil. You enjoy yourselves for, a full week.
Yes.
But you would imagine that, CES more consumer oriented. But what I found interesting is that this year, there were a lot of tier one automotive suppliers. I mean, Visteon, Valeo, I'll come to Faurecia, Aptiv, and Faurecia was there also. So can you just share why
Yeah,
do you
absolutely.
go at CES?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to invite you all. We will also be next year, the CES, or our third time. We have a big booth outside of the main entrance next to Google, is where we are. And the reason is we engage into a business with close to be end customer. Right now, we have a B2B business. We sell to the OEM, the car manufacturer. In future, once we engage in more digital services, there is the possibility to go B2B to C. So we need to understand first what are the customers talking about, what is the market doing, and there's no right now better place than the CES in Las Vegas to understand what's the consumer electronics trends, what are the products that are going to be created, and how are we going to interface in new ecosystems with companies that create a meaningful experience all together for people sitting in the cockpit. So for us, it's very successful.
So as I had the opportunity to visit your booth, I mean, it was all about smart surfaces, the sound bubble, Alexa was there, AI, voice control system, gesture control system. I mean, all the digital technologies you could imagine, René has sort of put in the interior of the vehicle. But so that leads to maybe the second topic, digital technologies. Which digital technologies are you seeing your clients? What are they excited about? Which technologies?
A little selfish because PTC is in four great areas. You mentioned PLM and ALM, which is a huge component. If you talk about product complexity, I mean, you're talking a little bit about personalization, but personalization, whether it's furniture companies want to essentially sell office furniture, so the very chair you're sitting in, what if they only made 1,000 of them? They're seriously thinking about these types of things to personalize everything from a commodity item all the way up to, infotainment systems in cars have 50 different suppliers of technology in them roughly. So that complexity management is big for PLM. You use the word ALM, we kind of combine those two together now. If you're thinking about augmented reality and experiences like that, that's a very 3D sort of experience. So the very definition of CAD and the pipeline of all that configuration in is vitally important. And IoT to kind of enable the digital thread, if you will, not just the voice of the product coming, back at me to tell me how the product's behaving, but all of the other systems and interfaces and so forth that our customers have, whether it's their CRM systems, their field service systems, a supply chain, and so forth, that all of that is adding a lot of hyper value into the engineering organizations to understand the consequence of a change. So if you say, hey, I want to make this one component change, what's the ripple effect through your entire supply chain? And how quick can you actually make a decision that in terms of reacting to that? And those are all like really big core engineering type technologies, if you will, just to enable a company to produce a product like this.
And so, René, if you had to choose 3 technologies that Faurecia is really big on or has high, lots of expectation, which would be these 3 technologies, or 1 or 2? What are your top ones?
Yeah, right now it's clearly in the field of AI or make use of big data. This is where we're investing also a lot. We acquire now 700 more people that will work in the area of software development in AI. And I would say all flavors of these technologies will help us to create new products and new services. And there are also some more technical related that's going to the energy consumption and so on, but this is not my field where I'm expert. But in AI, we invest a lot because it helps to transform the organization and also to explore new markets.
Okay. So, Christoph, I know Institute, ethics, and artificial intelligence, but the people, the students you deal with, or the pieces of research you do, I'm sure are not just focused on AI. Are there other technologies which you see are pretty hot?
So I should talk about this institute a bit more in order
Yes.
to explain what it is about. Since we have decided at Technical University of Munich to found this new Institute for Ethics in AI recently. We are already one of the top AI research universities in the world. I think we're number 6 in the world. So putting now the ethics into it, and what we are planning to do is research projects between the technical disciplines, which between engineering, informatics, and so on, and other people from ethics, law, governance, social sciences, in order to work on concrete projects, in order so that they could look each other over the shoulder and see what so here's an algorithm. What would you do with it? What should we do this or that? This is not just a case of very general rules. We have recently seen a number of very general, high-level principles on about ethics in AI, which is good to have. But now I think we need to get a bit more concrete, and we have now the support from Facebook for 5 years. But we are also looking to have other partners collaborating, which we will do certainly. And I think this is a good opportunity for new models of collaborating together with, for business to collaborate with partners in academia, because for the ethical rules you need some kind of independence, and this is what we are looking to have, and not just doing for the business. The ethics is not just for the business; it's for the business. It's for society, for civil society, and for society in general. I think this is an added benefit.
I can see where we could partner, because we've got two pieces of research: the future of food and the future of beauty. And in both of these themes, there is a ethical trust aspect. So we just need to have a chat afterwards, after this one.
Great.
So I wanted to open it up to the audience. Are there any questions, burning questions, around the digital transformation of the product, shift in value out there? One.
Thank you. Thank you very much for a very interesting panel discussion. You probably all saw that about 2 weeks ago, Apple went together with Goldman to do something which initially seems like it's in the payment industry, but it's probably more in the experience, and put an Apple experience around that. What's the influence on your business, considering you're now going B2B, B2C eventually?
In PTC's terms, we don't. I would look at the way Apple. You're talking about the Apple Card, so the payment system. I think it's interesting that, number one, that's a partnership with a finance company. I think it changes considerably how people would purchase things in an Apple ecosystem, if you will. Directly to PTC, it doesn't really make an impact, partly because a lot of the selling that we do is enterprise software to enterprise organizations, and every time that my guys try to use their corporate credit card to buy something, our procurement people still yell at them. So I think we got that hurdle to get over. I don't know they're going to Apple Pay anytime soon, but it is as some of our software becomes a little bit more, I'll say, consumer-oriented, self-service oriented, and so forth. We are definitely looking at taking more forms of payment, but to us, the method of payment is still similar to all the other forms of payment.
If I could add, I don't know of any plans in our company now to talk to Apple and do a specific proof of concept. That I'm not aware of. But I can say, in principle, the cockpit of the future will be a marketplace. So we will not only talk about an HMI with end user, we will talk about, at the end of the day, concrete postings. So concrete actions where people would like to either book a service, buy a product, or being routed to the next restaurant and already pre-book or whatever. So all the ideas later to also process then the payment methods are, of course, very interesting.
Yeah, I give it, outside of PTC, just an example that comes immediately to mind with Apple CarPlay, with a payment system built into it, automated payment for parking, payment for the express lane. Like, get out of my way, I'm willing to pay you more money so I can get past you, so I can get into the office. And if anybody's dealt with Boston traffic, that's worth something.
And imagine the shopping experience where you're in your car autonomous and you spent your day or your 2 hours in transit just using your Apple Card. Wow. Gives you shivers.
Exactly.
So let's just continue maybe in the and talk and go into our third topic. Maybe one thing here too, linking back to the piece of research I mentioned, the 1,300 companies that we surveyed, and we asked these companies, and I think it'll resonate with René, is AI or digital technologies in your products and services. Okay, at what pace? And I was extremely surprised to see the feedback from the companies across the world is that more than half, 60%, close to 60% of the companies said that within the next 3 to 5 years, 30% of their product and service portfolio would be AI enabled. Therefore, 20 to 30% of their revenues would come from new value spaces, which I think is pretty well aligned with Foresia's ambition
Yes,
by 2025. And you say in 3-4 years' time, I mean, that is tomorrow. I mean, for any manufacturer. And 20 to 30% incremental revenue, I mean, that's not anecdotal. So how do you make it happen? The how-to is important. And therefore, I mean, René touched upon it, saying, well, it requires new methods, new tools, new technical disciplines, new ways of working, ecosystem. So could you just expand on what are the implications for Foresia? Because you're driving this change. So
Exactly. So as I already started, the way we are going to design products in future is next to the product itself, that has a list of features. We talk about how user will basically experience it and what additional features we could bring. To make it maybe very concrete, if you travel in a car and you commute every day half an hour, and we measure just your weight, and we measure your weight changes, implicitly you already know that we know a lot about you, and we could, if you want, with your consent, you would like to share this data, we could provide this data to you, and then you could use this data for your own health development. Our CEO, which is the biggest digital transformer in our company, he made a very interesting and very cool statement. He said, in the cockpit of the future for Foresia, you enter in a certain state of well-being and you leave the car in a better state of well-being. Because think of the following, we could identify what's the best position that enables the better feeling. We could identify the best thermal comfort. We could identify the best sound, the light settings. And even one could think about odor that helps a person personalize to improve the well-being. So these products are to be created. And in the process to create these new value spaces, you need to understand what are the sensors, where to put them, what are the data sets you're going to create, and how you create then new services and AI-driven models. So that means for us in the industry, we have to think right in the design of the products already about the right way to measure data, capture data, transform data, and then create digital services. So it's what I said, the PLM and then the ALM go along is an add.
But also, I mean, you Foresia acquired a few companies.
Yes.
So I'm sure there was a reason for that. Can you just expand on this one? Why you went after these guys?
As we said, we are a manufacturing company, and over the years we have acquired a company called Parrot Automotive, Coagent, and now recently Clarion, which brings us into the field of electronics, which brings us to the field in the infotainment system where we add also electronic features. And with these, we add now software features that helps to understand how people use the car and how we create new values. So for us, it's not only the idea to transform digital the company, that means competence in the way we produce, but also to transform the company in itself. That means capture new sales organizations, capture new product creation processes, and capture basically a new market. And that's how we create or transform the company. And I can share this. This is a public information. And on Investors Days, we said by 2025, we will have 30 billion euros turnover, and 7 out of the 30 billion will be by means of digital products.
21%. So maybe back to you, Steve. I mean, you're working with customers and you're providing them solutions in this space. So are you seeing evolution or new requests coming up with smart and connected products?
Yeah, I think it depends on where customers are in their journey. Some are in very primitive state. They make what I'll say is an industrial product that, quite frankly, they don't even know what the first step is on a transformation journey. But they shouldn't be afraid of that. whether it's they want to improve consumables, serviceability, user experience, all of these are very attainable things for them to do, and we help them on that end. And on the far opposite end would be, where Frisia and others are really going as system integrators yourself, of bringing a lot of technology together to bear on trying to capture a larger market share, if you will, in terms of the system inside the vehicle. And in those cases, we're assisting those companies manage what I would say is an overarching challenge with the complexity. And it's a fantastic time to be an engineer, because it's absolutely spectacular, the number of opportunities that are out there.
Good. The product is back.
Yeah.
Some could say. So maybe both of
Or to
you.
use a French term, is renaissance in
La
engineering.
renaissance des ingénieurs. I've got an electrical engineering degree. I haven't really used it up to now. Might have a chance. Whew. Good. Ecosystem. Just a quick, because that is something that René mentioned, and maybe for you, Christophe, ecosystems are now a critical capability for manufacturers. To let the innovation from the outside flow into the organization, to leverage capabilities that you don't have. Ecosystems, trust, ethics, they seem to oppose each other. I'm sure you've got a view.
Yeah, it depends on your ecosystem. If you have a bad ecosystem, then it might smell a bit. But I think it's indeed crucial. We've even before we had the digital transformation, we were talking about stakeholders, for example, stakeholders that you have to talk to, that you have to be in frequent discussions with. So this is not something entirely new, but I think we will see it on a new scale or in a new dimension now. In order to get those projects that are very much customized, as you're saying, it's a new level of customization. Even get your odor in the car. That's I had not thought of yet. But in order to prevent all sorts of criticism from springing up, or at least addressing them and talking to people, I think there will be a lot of points where some people say, well, isn't this problematic in whatever sense? And from a technical aspect, you would often say, or mostly say, well, what's the problem? This is, I think, a typical reaction, which I totally understand. However, there will be some aspects that you probably need to take into account right in the design phase, what might be possible objections and how we would address them. You just said, for example, our data. We, of course, if you give us your consent, then we will do with the data whatever we can do. But this is something that we need rules for. We have the GDPR, for example, now, and we will have other rules probably. But this is also something that companies should be working on in order to address those specific digital stakeholders maybe that are there.
Okay, well, thank you. Any last word comments from the panelists on reinventing the product, or shall we call it a panel?
I think the future's bright.
The future's bright. The future's bright. What we're seeing is digitally completely transforming the industry, transforming products. I think it is the right time to be an engineer as well as an experienced designer. I think these guys will have a lot to do. So please don't hesitate. The panelists will be here for another few minutes. So if you have the specific questions, please do not hesitate. If you have time to spend a bit of time on our Accenture booth, I should say a few words about Accenture. You can see some smart connected products that we've done. The smart connected machine, a coffee machine. You can see the cocktail machine, which we finally got the, I need to say something about. So this one is a machine that DrinkWorks. So it's a joint venture between ABI and Keurig Dr. Pepper. And so this is to address the cocktail experience, okay? Because, when you're at home, I drink beer and wine. I'm not a very good cocktail maker, so I usually get them at the restaurant. But with this machine, you can do it now at home. So this was launched in November in St. Louis. And in less than 2 weeks, 6 months of inventory sold. So they're like my book, they're out of stock. And so at the last Industry of Things World, I could place my book. So at the last Industry of Things World in San Diego, we shipped one of these machines. So I had one of my colleagues who had his own machine to ship it over to San Diego with a, which I will not name, an international express company. It never made it to San Diego. It was so popular because it had DrinkWorks on the box. It never reached San Diego. And so we asked this company, does this happen? And said, never. It never happens. Now, you know, and so this is a very popular machine. We have one. You can't take it. We keep a close eye on it, but you can order it also if you want. They're 300 bucks. But the good thing is that they're smart connected. They know everything about you, what you drink, and they can fine-tune cocktails like the coffee machine for Unilever. So this was just a, I hope this give you a food for thought, to quote one of my friends, his best extraction. Please do not hesitate to read the book, okay? I wanted to thank you because either you personally or your organizations have contributed to bringing content in this book. We've got 4 great client cases for Faurecia with the connected cockpit, or the cockpit of the future. We have the Haier Group out of China. Chairman Zhang agreed to showcase a few of his products and how he made it happen personally. We had Simmons, which is a small plumbing company out of the US, and they're now selling a shower experience versus a shower knob. So here too, family owned. And then we've got ex-Philip Lightings, which is Signify, also talking about how they're transforming their business into the smart and connected business. So, and we've got academics that also contributed to bringing the content. So I hope you'll enjoy the book, and I've got a few copies which I can sell at a pretty discounted price if you're interested. Thank you.